This video is brought to you by my supporters on Patreon. Hey guys, I'm here with another fashion-y related video, and this time I'm be making a dress. If you watched my last one, you'll recognize this pattern, which is McCall's M7789 pattern. So I'm going to be making a cute little yellow sundress. This is the fabric that I'll be using. As you can see, this isn't necessarily a sundress. This is pretty long. I'm going to be altering this a lot. I mostly just want to take the top section from this pattern, which is this top right here, and then use the skirt as a base. So the only picture I see with the dress, it has it high-waisted. I'm going to be changing that. I'm going to keep this band that's here and then add the skirt onto the bottom of it, and then I'm going to be chopping off most of the length. This is the fabric that I will be using. I got it from Joann's. This was actually from their spring collection, and it was Spring Garden Stretch Crepe, I think it's great. Knit fabric by Mimosa Solids. The name is real long. It's a 4-way stretch fabric, which is what I wanted for this dress because this is going to make it so I can just slide it on and off, and the measurements don't have to be super exact, and then it's also still kind of flowy but thick enough too where it's not see-through, so I'm not going to line it. To start off, I made some adjustments to the pattern. So the first thing I did was take the skirt part of the pattern and just cut it to the length that I needed it to be, because like I mentioned earlier, this pattern was for a very, very long full-length skirt or dress, and I wanted something significantly shorter. I wanted it above mid-thighs. Once I had my pattern altered, I laid that out onto my fabric and cut out all of the pieces. I didn't feel the need to make a mock-up for this piece because the only thing I was really changing about the pattern was the skirt length. Other than that, I was just piecing together different outfits in the pattern to make them one. For example, the waistband usually went with the pants set. I just made it go with the skirt for this one. The only other thing I usually run into with patterns is they tend to be a bit big on me sometimes, even when I'm following the sizing chart or whatnot. But I'm using stretchy fabric here, so I'm not having to worry about installing a zipper or anything. So altering this to make it smaller and fit me better if need be was going to be super easy. It wouldn't be a lot of work, and I didn't worry about wasting this fabric because I bought quite a bit of this. And if anything, it would just be trimming maybe an inch off the sides or length or something. Once all the pieces were cut out, it was time to start sewing. I started off by sewing the panels for the top together. So I pinned each side of the top together at the center and sewed that down using a zigzag stitch. Remember how I said the only other real problem that I run into with commercial patterns is the sizing is a bit big on me even when following the sizing chart? Yeah, I realized that was what was happening here as soon as I finished sewing those two panels together. So I pinned all the pieces together, then tried it all on and repinned it so that it actually fit tighter and well on me, because it was going to end up being way too big to start. Basically what I did was have to take in all of the seams for the top about an inch or an inch and a half in. Then I sewed all of those together using a zigzag stitch. Next up, I started working on the straps, and I just followed the pattern instructions for this by folding over this rectangular cut of fabric right sides together and then sewing along that edge, that open edge, using a zigzag stitch.
Then I turned the straps right side out. Next, I took the straps and ironed them so that they sat nice and flat. I ironed it so that the seam was on one edge, a little bit tucked underneath the underside part, just so you don't super see it when it's worn, just kind of following the instructions that the pattern gives. This particular fabric, because it's like super stretchy and whatnot, was pretty difficult to iron and get to press into a nice flattened shape. So I had to take a little metal lid that I had and just press that on top of the fabric to hold it in place until it cooled, and found that that had helped a lot in getting the sleeves or the straps to sit flat.
This is what the top is looking like so far. So I went through and I cut the V shape down at the bottom a little bit deeper, because from when I had adjusted it to, shrink all this down because it was way too big to start with, when I did that, I kind of lost the V a little bit because I had to bring the center in like a couple inches. I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing with this V. I want it to be a teensy bit more in. So I'm going to just trim off a little excess and then seam rip this center open a tiny bit, and that should give me the V that I want, because I want the V to come down to about like right here. The straps have been made. I ironed those flat. So I'm going to go ahead and adjust this like I mentioned, and then I'm going to roll over the edges like they are now. I'm going to do it again and pin all that down. I'm also going to do it to this side and this side.
I took out all of the pins, folded the top over at the center, and then cut off about maybe a little over a 1/4 inch of fabric, maybe about 1/2 inch even, but no more than that. And then seam ripped out just about 1/2 inch or so of stitching from the very top of the garment, just to make it easier to roll over these raw edges at the center V. Next, I started pinning the straps into place. For the front, it was pretty easy to figure out the placement. It's at the very top of the little triangular shape cup parts. And then for the back, all I did was try on the top piece and then position one strap where I wanted it to sit on my back and marked it with like a pin. Just marked that spot with a sewing pin. This I did all by like feeling around my back, really, so I had like no idea what exactly it looked like. It might be helpful to have somebody help you with this. Anyways, once I figured out the placement that way, I then took it off and pinned the back straps into place, matched the strap on the other side with the strap where I had marked the pin, and then tried it on to make sure it actually all did look right. Once I was happy with it, I sewed the straps into place. Next, I started attaching the panels of the waistband together, as well as cut off some excess, like I had pinned this together and tried it on quickly, and then realized I needed to make it quite a bit smaller, so I just cut off a bunch of excess from the sides of the panel, and then pinned all those together, and sewed those together using a zigzag stitch. Next, I pin the waistband to the top part of the dress, and to do this, I start off by finding the center of both by folding both the top and waistband in half, and then aligning them at the center and pinning from there.
This is what I have so far. I've went ahead and I've pinned the waist area of the dress to the top, and at the center I've pinned it so that the fabric of the waistband comes up past the bottom of the top half just slightly, so that when I roll it over, I can roll it over twice. So I'm going to go ahead and sew all this down. I tried it on with it just pinned. Everything seems to be fitting okay.
Once the waistband was attached to the top, that open center area there, I rolled over that raw edge of the waistband twice so that it has this nice finished hem there, and then sewed that down using a zigzag stitch. Next step was to sew up the back of the dress, and to do that I just folded the top in half, right sides together, and then pinned along the back and sewed that shut with a zigzag stitch. I also make some minor alterations just to help the sizing fit a little bit better. And basically all I do is just kind of pin farther back from the edge than I normally would, just to make sure that things are sitting right, as well as bring up some of those seams to make sure that the top is even lengthways. I cut off any excess fabric from where the seams were taken in.
Alright guys, I have tried this on and it now fits. I've had to adjust the straps because this is stretchy material, so the original pattern is calling for linen or like your regular old non-stretch cotton fabric, so it definitely wasn't made for stretchy fabric, so I've had to do a lot of adjusting to it.
Also quickly cut off excess fabric from the straps.
So I've changed one thing down here. I switched it to a straight stitch because I don't want it to be quite as stretchy here, so I'm hoping that that might help it a little bit. I'm going to sew the skirt finally.
To sew the skirt, I take one of the side edges and sew that shut, so I place right sides of the fabric together, pin one edge, and then sew it down, and I use a straight stitch to sew down all of the pieces of the skirt because it doesn't need to stretch or anything like that. It's just a big floofy skirt. Kind of floofy. Once that is sewn together, I start rolling over the raw edges of the bottom and pinning that down to create a nice hem. I also sew this down using a straight stitch as well. After that is sewn together, I place right sides together again and sew up the other side of the skirt.
I'm going to take this, and then starting at the sides, I'm going to pin one side here, and then one side all the way over here. There's two sides to this. And I'm going to gather everything in between, so we'll see how this goes.
To gather the skirt, I start off by placing the center front and center back of the top half on a fold, and then folding the center front or folding the skirt so that the center front and center back of the skirt is also on a fold, and then placing those two centers together just so that the gathers will be a little bit more even on both sides, all the way around the skirt, and then I just kind of start randomly gathering and pleating and whatnot from there. And then I sew all of that down using a zigzag stitch, and the dress is finished. And this is what the dress ended up looking like. I'm really, really happy with how this turned out. I absolutely love this dress. It's such a fun, I was combining fun and floofy there. It's such a fun kind of floofy dress. Like it sways really nicely, and I'm really happy with it. I really love how it turned out. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video and found it helpful and are happy with the results as well. If you end up using this video to make your own dress or anything like that, please show me. I would love to see it. Hopefully this is helpful. Anyways, thanks for watching, guys. I hope you have a lovely day. Bye!